Hello. This is only my second time filming a YouTube video that actually shows my face and I'm actually talking to the camera and stuff, and I am figuring out I am very camera shy. So we're doing kind of a ASMR style video today because I live with other people and I don't want them to know that I am filming a video because cringe. So I am talking very quietly with my beautiful microphone setup, so I don't have to shout so the camera can hear me. And my cat is fucking with the camera, so if you hear it jiggling or hear weird things in the background, that's why. Come here. Go say hi. I am back. So sorry. Anyways, this video is going to be everything I read in 2025. As of filming this, it is the almost end of January. It is almost into February, so I'm making this a little bit late, but better late than never. We'll get started. I kind of tried to organize the books into, like, by genre of what I read. So they're kind of all over the place. Sorry about that. I wanted to kind of start off with the kids / like young adult books I read because most of the books are, I feel like, well known and I won't need to like talk about as much because everybody knows about them already, and so I'm just gonna kind of speed past those and then we'll get to the other books that I read that maybe will be books that people haven't really heard of as much, more niche. Starting off, I reread the Spiderwick Chronicles. These are like very low middle age books, and I absolutely loved them and loved Spiderwick and the movie and everything as a kid, and so I wanted to reread these for like mostly nostalgic purposes. I just literally got through them in like a day. But it was so fun and nostalgic, and I enjoyed it very much. The next book that I read in like the kids genre was The Wild Robot. I borrowed it from the library to buddy read with my niece who is 4 and my nephew who is 8. And that was a lot of fun. It was just kind of fun to buddy read a like simple book with them. So I counted The Wild Robot, even though again, like the Spiderwick books, they're like middle age or like middle grade books. That is all of the kid books that I read in 2025, but I did read a handful of young adult books, starting with I finished out the Grishaverse trilogy, or sorry, the entire Grishaverse series. So I read Shadow and Bone in 2024. No. Yes, at the beginning of 2024. And then I read Six of Crows. Absolutely adored Six of Crows. That, to this day, those are 2 of my all-time favorite books. And then I read King of Scars. No. Anyways, I don't remember exactly how it happened, but I read King of Scars at the end of last year. So Shadow and Bone would have been 2023, 2024 beginning Six of Crows, and King of Scars. Started off the year with Rule of Wolves. Fantastic book. Rated it 5 stars. One of the like 2 books I rated 5 stars this year. Fantastic book. Definitely underrated series. Then I finished it off with Language of Thorns by Leigh Bardugo. This is a bunch of short stories that are like within the Grishaverse universe, but not like about any of the main characters. Very, very good. Then I did The Lives of Saints. This talks about all of the saints talked about throughout the Grishaverse series. This is in the Shadow and Bone TV show. And it was just really nice to kind of feel like you were, I don't know, like in the world of Shadow and Bone. Yes, this was really good too. If you are into the Grishaverse series, I would definitely recommend picking these up. They're very good. Then I read the entire Hunger Games trilogy for the first time ever. I know, you wish you were me. I don't remember exactly what I rated these, but I am absolutely obsessed with them. I was obsessed with the movies as a kid, and just never read the books for some reason. I don't really know why I never got around to reading them until now. But I did, and they were very, very good. Definitely worth the hype. Don't feel like I really need to explain much more than that. And then I, of course, also read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I will say, I do think this is my least favorite out of all of the Hunger Games. That being said, it's still really good. Like, this is still a very good book. But I just feel like it was lacking compared to the other ones. And then, of course, I did Sunrise on the Reaping. This is one of the other books that I rated 5 stars. Absolutely adored this book. Bawled my eyes out. I'm obsessed with Haymitch. I think he's probably my favorite Hunger Games character next to Finnick. If you like the Hunger Games, I highly recommend it. I've seen a lot of people say that they think this book was purely a cash grab. I have to say I disagree. Was it partly a cash grab? Maybe, but I don't think that that was the entire reason that Suzanne Collins wrote this book. I think that she still put a lot of heart and thought into it, and it was really planned out and made a lot of sense with the series as a whole. Like, it didn't really feel out of place, in my opinion. I've also seen a lot of people say that it had a lot of fan service. Maybe, but I'm a fan and I'm being serviced, so I don't fucking care. Great book, highly recommend. The Hunger Games finishes off the rest of the young adult section. Now we're moving on to the cozy fantasy / cozy romance. I read 3 of those this year. I think my favorite out of the 3 has to be A Song for the Wild Build. This, I wouldn't really consider this a romance, more just cozy fantasy. Really good book. Really short and sweet. This got me out of a really bad reading slump. I would definitely recommend this if you're kind of just needing a simple, digestible, short read for whatever reason, whether you're just getting into reading, whether you're going through a reading block, whatever. This book is queer, as besides the few books that I've shown you so far, most of the books I read usually are queer or queer related in some way. This year I definitely did a lot more genre hopping than I would usually do. Like, I had the most DNFs this year than I've had any other year, because I was just trying new things. But typically, you will see, if I continue to make videos, oh my god, my cat. If I continue to make videos, you will see that I prefer queer, preferably queer fantasy, and I will not touch contemporary. I will not touch contemporary. I don't like contemporary, personally. No hate to anybody that does, just not my vibe. Okay. This follows a futuristic sci-fi world where AI robots have become completely autonomous and have decided to separate from humans. And I can just read the synopsis. It's written by Becky Chambers. It's been centuries since the robots of Pangea, gained self-awareness and laid down their tools. Centuries since they wandered en masse into the wilderness, never to be seen again. Centuries since they faded into myth and urban legend. One day, the life of a teen monk is upended by the arrival of a robot there to honor the old promise of checking in. The robot has one question: what do people need? But the answer to that question depends on who you ask and how. They're going to need to ask it a lot. Very low stakes, very sweet, simple, cozy. This really made me crave like a nomadic life. Like I've really been thinking about getting like an RV and just completely moving into it and just traveling. Like this book makes you want to travel and be a tea monk. Very good. Now, out of the cozy romances, surprisingly, I read a straight romance. You will very rarely find me reading straight romances unless there's lots of like underlining queerness, like a lot of queer classics. This was a good straight romance. I think one of the main reasons I enjoyed this as a straight romance is because the romance kind of takes a back step compared to the main plot. Uh, I would, if you are like me and really enjoyed the Spiderwick books or movie growing up, this is going to be right up your alley. The world building around the fairies is very well done. Surprisingly, I saved this to read in the spring because I know they say never judge a book by its cover, but based off the cover, I assumed, and with being fairies, and fairies are usually surrounded by like flowers and springtime stuff, I really thought that this would be a great spring book. The entire book takes place through like the freezing cold winter, so I would highly recommend if you're like me and you're a mood reader to read this during the winter. Besides its flowery, springy appearance, I think one of the reasons I also like the straight romance in this book is the main reason that I dislike straight romance isn't because it's a man and a woman. I'm bisexual, like that's totally fine. I really hate romances that push super heteronormativity. Most straight romances are damsel in distress, innocent virgin girl, big strong man who does all the fighting for her, and I'm a bottom. Okay, give me a hot butch lady and a little twink because that's me. Okay. This, although it's not like that, it is kind of like the grumpy sunshine plot, but she's the grumpy and he's the sunshine. He's this like super optimistic, kind of dumb researcher. It's also like it's not enemies to lovers, but like academic rivals, because they're both like college students competing to like research fairies. Very good. I feel like yeah, okay, you know enough about it. And then I also read Can't Spill Treason Without Tea. This is a sapphic fantasy romance, super cozy, again, super low stakes. All Reyna and Keanth want is to open a bookshop that serves tea while firelight drips between the rafters. But Reyna works as one of the queen's private guards, and Keanth is the most powerful mage in existence. Leaving their lives isn't so easy. But after an assassin takes Reyna hostage, she decides she's thoroughly done risking her life for a self-centered queen. Meanwhile, Keanth has been waiting for a chance to flee responsibly, all the better that her girlfriend is on board. Together they settle into Tawny, a town nestled in the icy tundra near Dragon Country, and open the shop of their dreams. What follows is a cozy tale of mishaps, mysteries, and a murderous queen throwing the realm's biggest temper tantrum while these two women discover that what they mean to each other and the world. Very cute. I feel like this book. Sorry, I keep breathing the microphone. This book is what Legends and Lattes wanted to be. Legends and Lattes was supposed to be a cute, low stakes, cozy romance that's just kind of like what happens after our heroine, retires or after they save the world or whatever. Like when you want to see like your favorite characters like afterlives or like what happens after the movie. That's what the vibe that cozy romance is supposed to encompass. I liked Legends and Lattes. Okay, the vibes were immaculate. That book is very boring. This book isn't boring. It keeps the low stakes and the coziness while not being boring and still keeping you entertained. If you read Legends and Lattes and enjoyed it but wanted more from it, fantastic book for that. Now we are getting on to the dark romances that I read this year. Surprisingly, even though this is my preferred genre, I only read 3 of those in 2025. Again, 2025 was a year for me of genre hopping. Okay. I read Our Satyr Prince by Dylan Drakes. I got this. Yeah. I live in the Pacific Northwest. I live in Oregon. I took my sister to Seattle for her birthday, and we stopped by an all queer bookstore in Seattle called Charlie's. Charlie's Books? Charlie's Bookstore? The sticker doesn't say, it just says Charlie's. Charlie's Bookstore. It should pop up. It's in this, like, it's been out of like an old house, and it's this bright like pastel pink. It was a super fucking cute bookstore. I bought a gigantic stack of books. This was the last of the books that I had bought in there that I hadn't read. Read that in 2025. This book was well written. It's based off of Greek mythology. Roman mythology. I don't know. It's like gods and goddesses. It's kind of a high fantasy. The world building was pretty good. The romance in this book I thought was very fast paced. It seemed to me like the characters fell for each other kind of out of nowhere. It is technically enemies to lovers, but I just feel like they went from quiet disdain to being like madly in love in like the blink of an eye. Like they never really hated each other, but then all of us, they just didn't really care about each other, and then all of a sudden they're just like head over heels for each other. I don't know. It felt kind of sloppy in my opinion. There's also a bit of like a side sapphic romance besides the main gay romance. It was really all over the place. I don't want to spoil anything. I don't really know how to go into deep detail about it without spoiling it. It is a sloppy, and then it ends on kind of a cliffhanger. Trying to search up where the second book is on my Fable account. Follow me on my Fable. I'll put it up somewhere. The Dylan Drakes hasn't written a second one, and this came out like years ago, so I don't think he ever plans on making a second one. And I'm pretty sure it's like an indie book. It's like independently published. So that was frustrating. So I have no idea what's gonna happen. I don't remember what I rated this, but I can't recommend it really because there's no conclusion. But it was good. So I don't know. Maybe if more people read it, maybe I'll write a second one actually. So maybe do check it out because I am interested to see where the story goes, even though I didn't love it. Next, the other two books are from Ben Alderson, who has tended to be the author that I go to for queer dark romance. I'll get to why that's changing in just a second. I first read The Witch and His Crow. From my understanding, this is a standalone, which is one of his Ben Alderson's only standalones, I believe. Most of his books belong to pretty large series. Let's see if it says. Yeah, it has here. I have read all of the Darkmourn universe series, which I really enjoyed. And then the other book that I read was the start of a Realm of Fae series, which we'll get to in a second. And then he has a third series, Court of Broken Bonds series. Haven't read any of those. And the Dragori trilogy, which is a young adult fantasy. So most of his books have smut. I'm assuming they used to now since they're young adult. And I haven't read those either. So yeah, I believe that this is a standalone. This was a like battle to the death trials book, which I don't know. Nothing does it as good as the Hunger Games. And I just feel like everybody who writes those are just trying to copy the Hunger Games. This book is original in some ways, but it honestly really reminded me of the, I don't remember which, Goblet of Fire, when in Harry Potter, fuck J.K. Rowling, by the way, when they're doing the wizarding tournaments, it reminded me more of that, but just lamer. I don't know. The plot to this book was very good. The romance was okay. I don't remember what I rated this one either. It was pretty low. I think it was like 3 stars, which is like, I enjoyed this book. Like, this is definitely a shut your brain off and just want to read a bunch of smut type book, but of course, gay. Um, yeah, the main character Hector Breyer, he's like been in hiding for being magic, and then gets kind of thrust into these trials without really wanting to. I don't know. It wasn't a very good book. Okay. Then I read A Betrayal of Storms. I did enjoy this one, I think, more than Witch and His Crow. However, I haven't read Akatar, and I never will. It does kind of copy the whole. Is it Akatar or Fourth Wing? Akatar. That has like the courts, and they're all based off of like different seasons. This book does that, and I feel like that's so Tinkerbell. I like the Tinkerbell movies, don't get me wrong, but when I'm running to read about two hot men gay smutting each other up, I don't want to be thinking of one of my favorite childhood series. You know what I mean? I don't know, I just feel like it's basic. I don't feel like this book really did anything very different than other fantasies. I definitely feel like this book was trying to be more than just a trashy romance. Like, he was trying to add world building and like more to his book, which I love. And I think that you can do both. I think you can have a beautiful, enriching, world building, high fantasy book that is also smutty. Like, I mean, look at Game of Thrones. Um, this didn't really do that. It just felt like a trashy romance with just more dialogue. I don't know. It was a good book, but I feel like it was trying too hard and not doing a very good job at it. Okay. I also, this makes it seem like I'm dissing Ben Alderson and that I don't like him. I really enjoy his books. These are the fifth and sixth books of his that I've read. I've liked all of his other books. Okay. And I liked these books too. Um, Another thing that I will say annoys me after reading so many books of his is that his characters are exactly the same in every single book. You have the big, buff, masculine top who's like a daddy or like a bear character, and then you have the submissive, bratty, sarcastic twink, and every single one of his books has that dynamic, and it gets boring and it gets overdone. I mean, same with straight romances. How like every straight romance is the same and has the same like dynamic with the submissive lady and the big gruff guy. These books do that, and I was fine the first 3 times, and then after that, I'm like, okay, give me two bears, give me a bear and an otter, a bear and a twink, two twinks, like fucking gay relationships aren't so black and white. Okay, stop pushing heteronormativity, and usually you wouldn't expect that of a gay author, which he is. He has a husband. And I'm assuming it kind of seems like that dynamic is maybe what him and his husband's dynamic is, and that's why he writes about it. Sorry. Writes about it so much, which I could get, but I'm like, okay. Break from the pattern here, bud. Please, I'm begging you. Okay, that finishes off the dark romance. Now we're getting this category I just named miscellaneous because they're all kind of different, random genres and books, but I still thought they were worth the mention. Starting out with the worst ones, I read The Mermaid, the Witch, and the Sea, and because I bought both of them at the same time, because I was really confident that I was going to like these books, and I ended up not really liking them much, I had bought in the second, Siren, the Song, and the Spy. Actually, I think I thrifted both of them, because this one is a hardback, and this one I got in a softback, and I really hate doing that normally. So I think at least one of these I thrifted, but they're in really good condition. Anyways, I really, really wanted to like these books. I was really confident that I was going to like these books. They're like fantasy pirate books. I'll get into the plots in a second. They were very, in my opinion, poorly written. The plots were good. The character development was god awful. Characters fall for each other, get angry at each other, hate each other, want to kill each other. Fucking drops it out for no fucking reason. The way that these characters just change feelings and opinions on each other just seemed so fast and so sloppy. Was not a fan. There are certain parts in the book, I don't know if I wrote any of them out. There were multiple points where there would be a word in a sentence that technically made sense in the sentence, but it was like kind of off. I don't understand how to explain what I mean. Like, it literally felt like they were like typing out on Word and they knew that they could use a bigger word than the word they had used, and they just like copy and pasted it and like looked up synonyms on Google and then just put a word that they didn't quite know the meaning of. Like, you know how good words can be synonyms of each other, but they don't really mean the same thing. Like, big and humongous are synonyms, but they don't quite mean the main thing. Like, when you say humongous, you're putting more emphasis on it. There were multiple cases where like she meant to put big, they. I don't know. I don't know anything about the author. She. Okay. Maggie Tokuda Hall. She. That's definitely the vibe she gave her. She used humongous when she could have just used big. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, there was multiple cases where the wording for that didn't make any sense. Yeah, just not a fan of either of these books. I think that if I would have just bought the first one, I wouldn't have even picked up the second one, but because I had both of them, I felt the need to. That being said, I will DNF a book if I'm hating it and just not having a good time. I read both of these books. Like, they were enjoyable. There was just a lot to critique. And again, like, a lot of the like mythology and the world building to this book was very well done. And like I said, the base plot was well done. It's just I wish the same plot but just written better. You know what I mean? I don't know. Oh, I guess I could explain the plot. So the first one, I'll just explain the first one because I guess the second one follows kind of different characters than the main characters in this one, but it's still in like the same world and stuff. The pirate Florian, born Flora, has always done whatever it takes to survive. Now that means sailing under false flag on the Dove as a marauder, thief, and worse. Lady Evelyn Hasegawa, a highborn imperial daughter, is on board as well, accompanied by her own casket. Lady Evelyn's one-way voyage to an arranged marriage is interrupted when the captain and crew show their true colors and enslave their wealthy passengers. But when Florian and Evelyn fall in love, they decide to take fate into their own hands, no matter the cost. See, sounds bomb. Just could have been executed a little bit better. Next. So, I'm kind of cheating this as a full book. This is Scattered Showers by Rainbow Rowell. Rainbow Rowell is who wrote the Simon Snow trilogy, which is the trilogy that basically got me like back into reading after getting out of it through like high school. Like, I was really into reading elementary, middle school, got out of it in high school because I was depressed and emotionally exhausted from school and I didn't want to read. The Simon Snow trilogy like really pulled me back into reading and got me like really into it again. This has a single story. This is a book of short stories. It has a single story that follows up about the Simon Snow trilogy. It's just like a quick, sweet afterthought from the 3 books. I bought this solely for that story. Finally got around to reading just that story this year. And that's it. None of the other short stories in this book look interesting to me. The Simon Snow trilogy, from what I know, is Rainbow Rowell's like only like fantasy series. Like, it's based in the real world, but it's like, you know, like magic and wizards and stuff. It's very similar to Harry Potter, but like without the transphobia. So better. All of the rest of her stories are like contemporary, usually straight. I don't care. They don't interest me. So yeah, I bought this $25 book for that one short story. Counted that as a whole book read, and I will not be touching another story out of it. I'm sorry. I didn't recommend the book. I'm so sorry. Now, this is probably... No, not probably. This is the best book that I read in 2025. I read this... I knew within the first 30 pages of this book that I was going to be a 5-star read. I absolutely adore this book. Hollow Kingdom by Kira Jane Buxton. This... I'm not religious, but this was an angel sent from God. Okay, this book is so amazing. I would not have picked up this book normally. My local library was doing a book signing with the author, and to kind of like advertise for that, they were giving away this book to for free at the library. Picked it up solely because like it kind of looked interesting to me, and I was like, oh, it's free, might as well take one home. They had a whole stack there. Got around to it when I didn't really have anything in mind to read, and it ended up being one of my all-time favorite books. Such a good fucking book. I will read the synopsis now. ST, a domesticated crow, is a bird of simple pleasures. He spends his days hanging out with his owner, Big Jim, trading insults with Seattle's wild crows, i.e., those idiots, and enjoying the finest food humankind has to offer, Cheetos. With a little copyright, or whatever it is for food. Rights reserved. Then Big Jim's eyeball falls out of his head, and ST starts to think something's not quite right. His tried and true remedies, such as beak-delivered beer, an inventive cocktail, or stolen pharmaceuticals, fail to cure Big Jim's debilitating malady. Malady? Suddenly, ST is left with no choice but to abandon his old life and venture out into the wild and frightening world of Seattle with Big Jim's loyal but dim-witted dog, Dennis. To his shock and horror, he finds Big Jim's neighbors literally devouring one another. Local wildlife is abuzz with rumors of Seattle's dangerous new predators. Humanity's extinction has seemingly arrived, and the only one determined to save it is a cowardly crow whose only knowledge of the world comes from TV. What could possibly go wrong? So basically, this book is a zombie apocalypse book from the point of view of a domesticated crow, which sounds like the most chaotic, silly book. Now, this book has its humorous moments. This book is very funny. That being said, this is one of the saddest books I think I have ever read. Granted, I'm not usually into sad books, so that isn't saying much. But like, I love animals, and I love specifically birds. I volunteer at my local raptor center where I live. Which I think is one of the other reasons I really enjoyed this book. Is not only is it a bird, but a lot of obviously the bird is like slightly anthropomorphized because you're like in his head and stuff. But the like knowledge around the birds in this book is all really accurate. Like it explains like wingspans and what they eat and like that kind of stuff. All that's really accurate, which I really enjoyed. Just so ST, you find out very quickly into the book, stands for shit turd. That is the name of this crow, which kind of just puts into mind the kind of person that Big Jim is, who's raising this crow. Zombie apocalypse happens, and ST believes like in his soul that he is a human and that he was like born in the wrong body. Like he wasn't meant to be a crow. He got like cursed with it. And so seeing him have to like be thrust into the wild world and like forced to come to terms with the fact that he's not human, he's a crow, was very interesting. Like dealing with a bird with like body and gender dysphoria, like species dysphoria. And then the other book that I read is there is a second book to this book. The first one is better in my opinion. Like I rated this 5 stars. I think I might have rated this 5 stars. I might have rated it 4.5 on my Fable. This book is also very good. Don't get me wrong. This book ends on a massive cliffhanger. And I literally went and grabbed this book like the next day. Because I was so anxious to find out what was happening. This is probably one of the books I've read the quickest ever with how big it is. I got through this so fast. And I got through this one very fast too. So yeah, this is just a continuation of the story, obviously. But very good book. If you pick up any of the books out of this video, it has to be this one. Okay, it's so good. So that is it for the miscellaneous section of these books. The next one I'm going to do is all of the classics that I read in 2025. First, I read Carmilla. This has been going around kind of a lot, especially around like October. I saw this like all around book talk. But if you don't know, Carmilla is a sapphic vampire classic that was written before Dracula and is actually one of the books, or like the book that inspired Dracula. Of course, other stuff went into like Vlad the Impaler and stuff went into the inspiration of Dracula, but this is like what initially encouraged Bram Stoker's Dracula. I'm going to tell you right now, because I also read Dracula for the first time this year, this book is better. So much better. So then, of course, I also read Dracula. Now, I thrifted this, and this is a horror classics book that has Dracula, Frankenstein, and The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I found this after I had listened to Dracula on audiobook. I had been looking for. I also listened to Frankenstein 2024 for the first time. To this, out of all the classics that I've read in my life, Frankenstein remains my favorite. Fantastic classic. I've been looking for like a really cool or like nice, like vintage Frankenstein copy, and so I always check for it whenever I go to a thrift store. And this isn't really what I was looking for, but I thought this was cool. And so I went and picked it up because, like I said, I would also been wanting to read Dracula, or I had read Dracula, sorry. Dracula, I actually DNF'd. It was not what I was expecting. I thought that it was going to be more like Carmilla, because the thing is like, I always get like kind of down on myself when I don't enjoy a classic book, because I'm like, oh, am I just like, am I not academic enough? Am I not getting what the story is about? But as someone who enjoys multiple classics, I know that it wasn't just like me finding classics boring, because I've read other classics that I've really loved, Frankenstein and Carmilla, for examples. It wasn't what I was expecting. There's very any Dracula in it. At least like I got like 50% through. Like I usually get to like 50% through books before I ever DNF, because I don't enjoy DNFing. But yeah, so I ended up DNFing Dracula, which really sucks. I still haven't watched. I'm gonna watch the movie, and then of course the new movie comes out. Now that's 2026. It comes out in America in February, and I'm gonna go watch that. So I need to watch Bram Stoker's Dracula. But yeah, I did not enjoy the book. That being said, since I have this out, I also read The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Now I did read that after I had gotten this, although I didn't use this to read it. That classic was free on. I have since now canceled my Audible subscription because fuck Amazon. But I still had my Audible subscription, and that classic was completely free on there. And so I went and just listened to it. I did finish that one. I was not as big of a fan of it. I didn't DNF it. I did finish it all the way through, unlike Dracula. I don't regret reading it necessarily, but I wouldn't necessarily feel the urge to read it again like I would Frankenstein and Carmilla. Then, this is another one that I listened to on audio. I did not have a physical copy of it, so I read listened to Interview with a Vampire. I think I rated it 2 or 3 stars. That being said, I did not think that it was a bad book. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It is pretty similar to the movie adaptation, slight differences, like Claudia being like 4 or 3. Unlike both the movie and show adaptations. Yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it. Probably not a book that I would reread, but I did thoroughly enjoy it, and I don't regret reading it. Next, another audiobook was the uncensored version of Dorian Gray. I originally was planning on listening to this on audiobook because Ben Barnes, who plays Dorian Gray in the live-action movie adaptation, has a version of him reading the book on Audible, and I plan on listening to that because I love Ben Barnes. Fat Crush. He is literally the Darkling, literally Shadow Daddy, and then he plays Dorian Gray, a little gay twink. 10 out of 10. I was very excited, and then I found out that there was the unedited version released that I didn't know about previously, and so I really previously, anyways. And so I really wanted to listen to that one and go on to Audible. The one narrated by Ben Barnes is not the unedited version. So I went ahead and bought the unedited version, and maybe I'll go back and listen to the Ben Barnes one at some point. I did thoroughly enjoy The Picture of Dorian Gray. Very intriguing. And I'm glad that I did listen to the uncensored, unedited, version of that, but I wish Ben Barnes would have been doing that version as well, I fear. Unless this, unfortunately, was also a DNF, Lost in the Classics. I decided to read Lord of the Flies. Most people I know read this in school. I did not read this in school. I went to a very small Christian conservative school, and then I was actually homeschooled through part of high school. Long story. And so I never got around to reading this ever. It never came up, and I thought, why not? I found it at the thrift store, and it was only like $1 or so. I was like, why not? I'll try and read it. This book is so boring. I see why they force people to read it in school, because that's the only place you can read it. I'm being mean. A lot of the reviews on this were like really good. Lots of people really enjoyed this book. I did not. I was just bored and I just didn't care about the characters. I honestly think that I just wasn't in the right mindset for this book. I think that if I would have tried it a little bit later, like when I was like more in the mood for something like this, that I would have enjoyed it. But I got about 50% of the way through, didn't care, and I don't think I'll probably ever be picking it back up to finish it. So, if you have not read Lord of the Flies, I do not think you are missing out on anything. So sorry. This last category, I didn't really know quite what to call this category. I called it just like the activism category, which I feel like is a fucking cringe ass performative fucking way to say that, but I don't really know how to describe it. Basically, these are books that had to do around like feminism, anti-racism, queerness, that aren't like fantasy or like fiction. These are like true, or that's a lie. One of them is a dystopian. Anyways, you'll get what I mean. I feel like when I go through it. The first one was I read The Handmaid's Tale, and then I also listened to the Testaments. It was free on Spotify. I don't know if it still is. It was when I read it. I actually liked the Testaments better than this one, and surprisingly, the show The Handmaid's Tale is way better, which usually I feel like isn't the case. Usually the books are better than like the film adaptation. I actually have a handful of books where I enjoyed the films more, and I low-key want to make a video about that. Comment if you would like to see that. This book was good. It wasn't as like one of the things I really liked about the Handmaid's Tale show is the feminine rage that you get from the main character June, and that's really lacking in this book. She's more like she's more brainwashed to kind of be forced into the Gilead conservative ideology than she is in the show, which like makes sense and I feel like is more realistic. Like if you're going through the events that our main character goes through, like you would do the same thing. Like I know I would. Like you would act the same way. But she is more likable and you kind of root for her better in the show. I don't know if this is making any sense. If you are a fan of the show or you're interested, I would recommend this. Still, it is still a very intriguing, mind-opening read. And then the Testaments I did also thoroughly enjoy. The next one was also an audiobook, so I don't have a physical copy of it. Is Word Slut by Amanda Montell, I think is her name. That was a really, really good book. It is a feminist linguistics book, which sounds boring, low-key. I wasn't quite sure about it. Very informative book. It is written by a white woman, so of course it's taking on feminism from a white feminist kind of point of view. That being said, she does not preach white feminism throughout the book, if that makes sense. Like she mentions the differences between white and black women and also cis women and trans women, which I really appreciated. I feel like a lot of times trans people are really left out of misogynistic or like feminist conversations. Oh, and it also mentions because it's a linguistics book, the language that trans and queer people specifically have taken on to like describe like genitals and stuff. Like trans guys will say like T-dick, and like stuff like that. And so yeah, it was a very interesting book. It was very informative, talking about how like language adapts and how you can like tell what people's thoughts and opinions are based on just like the language that they use and how inclusive or non-inclusive it is and stuff. I'm doing a shit job of explaining this book. It's very good. I would highly recommend reading it. Next book that was also an audiobook was Loud by Drew Afawalo. If you don't know who Drew Afawalo is, she's like a TikToker who got popular for basically like shitting on shitty misogynistic men on TikTok, and she has really good comebacks, and she's hilarious and beautiful and gorgeous, and I love her. she has an autobiography called Loud that basically touches on, it's about like her life, but it specifically touches on how like she started to decenter men and stopped like basically like adding to like the patriarchy and like stuff like that. So I thought that was a very good informative book, and that's why I kind of put this into this category instead of the miscellaneous category. If you don't know who Drew Ruffalo is, I don't think the book would really be interesting to you. Like, it is talks about like her personal life quite a lot, and like how misogyny and her centering men like specifically affected her and her life, and doesn't really talk about broadly out of that. So if you don't like her as a person, I wouldn't recommend the book necessarily. But if you do like her, I would highly recommend the book. The next one, again, was an audiobook, was Right Fragility by Robin something. I'll pop it up on the screen. This book wasn't what I thought it was. Firstly, it is written by a white woman, which I think if I knew that going into it, I wouldn't have picked it up, because my initial thought would be like, oh, like a white woman isn't going to be able to like accurately express how black people specifically deal with racism. Like, I know that I couldn't do that, and so I don't think I would have picked it up. But I'll probably cut that out. White Fragility is, I would say, I didn't learn very much from it. I felt like a lot of the topics were really obvious. Like, there's like literally a whole chapter that just explains like why it's bad to say the N word, and it's like, duh, like everybody should know it's 2025 at this point. Like, I don't know when this book was written, but it is a modern book. Like, it's late 2020s, and you don't know why it's bad to say the N word. But I realized that this book was targeted more for people that are kind of in like the earlier stages of like unpacking their racial biases, and just racist mindsets in general. So it felt obvious to me, but if you are at like the beginning of unraveling those ideologies, I would say this is a very good book for you. I also think that white people tend to take constructive criticism when it comes to being or talking or saying racist things, from other white people. They take it better than hearing it from black people, which is obviously fucked and fucking stupid. But I think that that is maybe why this book has gotten so popular, and I saw it all around like book talk, is because it's like easier. It was like easier to inform fucking racist ass white people. I don't know. It was a good book. I just felt like it's not for everybody. Next, now I actually did listen to this one on audiobook, but then I found a copy of it thrifting, and decided to pick it up because I think that I'll probably want to reread this book, and that is the autobiography of Malcolm X. This book was so fucking good. I always feel weird. That was my cat. I always feel weird reading books like this. Like, same with like the White Fragility book and stuff. Like, I didn't really give it a rating because it's like, I don't know. I feel like rating books like this where people like talk in depth about their like traumas and their hardships, to like put a rating like, oh, I loved hearing about your trauma, or to put like a good rating, they're like, love hearing about your trauma, or like a bad rating when they're like unpacking all of their like deep insecurities and be like, oh, like I hated you. I don't know. I feel like it's weird to give books like that rating. That being said, this book was fucking amazing. This is up there with some of my all-time favorite books. I low-key developed a crush on Malcolm X after reading this. Okay. Yeah, if you want to learn about American history, racism, uh, American history, anything, like this book, so good. Malcolm X's life was crazy and so interesting. Please read this book. The last book on this category that I read was before we were trans. This unfortunately wasn't on the DNF, which really sucks. I was really excited for this book because it's about like trans history, like from like way back when, and it goes all through it. This book was written so boring. It felt like reading stereo instructions. I was not intaking any of the information because it was written out so bluntly. Like I felt like I was reading a history book, not like a mandatory history book from like school, not like an interesting fun facts book. Not that I don't want it to be like in depth, but it was just like you can make a historical informative book not be boring. Like it's well done. Like I literally just listed a bunch of them. And this book did not do that. So I DNF'd it again about halfway through. It's kind of written out into like a short story ish style. So I might try to pick it up again at some point. Maybe just kind of try to like flip through and find stories that seem more interesting to me than others, like throughout history, and read it in maybe a more non chronological way. I don't know. I would still, if you're interested in trans history, I would still attempt to pick this up because maybe you won't find it boring. But if you have read this book and you have the same opinion and you have other books similar to this that aren't boring, please recommend, because I do want to learn more about trans history just without wanting to gouge my eyes out. And the last category is going to be the 4 graphic novels I read in 2025. I really love graphic novels. I think that people shit on them too much, and I think that people don't read them because they don't see them as being like academic, like you don't learn as much from them. I think that's bullshit. If anything, I think graphic novels, if anything, that was cringe. Actually, if anything, I feel like graphic novels are more artsy because on top of appreciating a beautifully written story, you're appreciating the beautiful art that they have. And I also think that they're really great for getting out of reading slumps because you don't have to like, most of the story is focused on the images and not having to like read. And so it's just easy to like appreciate a good story while kind of being able to shut your brain off. Highly recommend getting into graphic novels if you have not already. Anyways, one of the first ones I read was Other Ever Afters. This is a book of short stories based off of fairy tales. Yep, okay. Sorry. You can tell that my edible's kicking in. This is a book of short stories based off of fairy tales, but with queer and like feminist spins on them, which I absolutely adore. So it's a graphic novel, but like I said, it's a bunch of different short stories based off of random fairy tales. Highly recommend. This is kid friendly. There is no like nudity or graphic violence or anything. So this would be great if you have kids who are queer or no, even not queer, just to inform them of other things. Highly recommend. Other graphic novel that I read was Lightfall, The Girl in the Cauldron. This is a series. There are more books in this series, which I do think I want to read. I really enjoyed this book. This is kind of like a high fantasy adventure. Again, also kid friendly. The little this thing, the cauldron, it shows him as a baby, and he is the cutest fucking thing ever. I don't want to show it to you because I don't want to spoil it. But if you're liking the art style, and the plot, which I'll read out in a second, I highly recommend picking up this book. It was very cute. Deep in the forest of Urpa stands the Salty Pig's Tonics and Tinctures, home of the wise pig wizard and his adopted granddaughter Bee. As keepers of the endless flame, they live in a quiet and peaceful life, crafting medicines and potions for people of their once prosperous world. All that changes when Bee meets Cad, a member of the Gauldrons, a race thought to be long extinct. Cad believes that if anyone can help him find his missing people, it's the pig wizard. When the two arrives To arrive home, the pig wizard is nowhere to be found. Fearing for the pig wizard's safety, Bee and Cad set out across Urpa to find him, while danger fights its way out of the shadows and into the light. Can this reluctant duo get their act together in time to save the world, or has Urpa truly been its last sunrise? I really like this book. This little girl right here has really bad anxiety throughout this entire book, and is kind of gently encouraged to get past these anxieties and like face her fears. Which is, I mean, I just have anxiety, so that's just nice in general. But I feel like this would be really good for kiddos with anxiety, especially little girls. I feel like little girls are never shown being heroes in anything, and they are in this one. Next, we had Seance Tea Party. This is a kid-friendly sapphic graphic novel about a little girl who, or is it sapphic? Shit, I can't remember now. Maybe they're just friends. I don't think it, yeah, it is queer in some way or another. Basically, a little girl befriends a ghost while she is kind of having trouble growing up. She's like kind of in the later stages, and all her friends, like, she's still playing with toys while they're getting into like makeup and boys and like blah blah blah. Which is that's very much how I was as a kid. Like, I held into my childhood a lot longer than I feel like a lot of other kids did. And she kind of gets helped by seeing this little girl who is literally forced to be stuck to be a kid her entire life, because that's when she died, and she really craves to be an adult. And so you kind of have these two characters that are on opposite ends of the spectrum helping each other out. Very good book, very cute. Highly recommend. And finally, the last book and graphic novel was The Girl in the Sea. I read this over the summer. Same with the Read the Witch in the Sea. Those were summer reads while I was at the beach. This is a sapphic romance about two, I think, like young, like teenagers, middle schoolers, who fall in love, and one of them is a kelpie. I think so, right? Kelpie, like a mermaidy type thing. It was also very cute. Kind of like a sapphic Little Mermaid retelling. Hello, Jinx. Also kid friendly. Highly recommend whether you are a kid or not. Okay, that is it. That is all of the books that I read in 2025. Hope you enjoyed. If you have any thoughts about books, please leave them in the comments. If you have other book recommendations that you think I would enjoy, please leave them in the comments. If you just want to start a conversation about books or literally anything, feel free to comment. I love comments and people interacting with my content, even though I only have like 3 videos up on my channel, and I'm awkward and cringe on camera. If you did take the time to watch even a sliver of this video, I really appreciate you. Even if you leave a hate comment, I appreciate you, because you're pushing my content out. So thank you so much, bestie. And I want to start making YouTube videos more. We shall see. Okay, thank you for watching. I love you. Bye.